every skill that I've learned since birth, I use on this job every single day. And that's not hyperbole. That is true. All the creative stuff, the organizational stuff, the leadership stuff, all that stuff's every day. So I would think that, for instance, the military really helped me to drill in and hone my administrative and my organizational skills. All right. As you could imagine, the military is a highly structured outfit. And so it's really about being nimble. I did spend time with special warfare, so I understand how to adapt in intense situations. All right, able to really make adjustments really quickly. So I give a lot of credit to the people that I interacted with through the military to bring me to this point. And then when we think about, then first is my dad. My dad always talked about, if you're going to do anything, you need to get close to the administration so you understand the way things work. And so that too is what helps to keep me grounded and understand all the components in that puzzle. Also, I have three other brothers, all right? And so I also had to learn how to, and as the oldest child, I had to learn how to navigate both as a sibling and as an overseer, so to speak. So a teammate and then a manager. So I was able to learn some of those lessons really early. And being born and raised in the inner city, as some of you can imagine, there were responsibilities applied much younger than others may get in other kinds of environments. And so I think all of those things together has helped me to relate to people. It's helped me to communicate with people. It's also helped me to humble myself and not forget from whence I come and sit too on high and not be able to take feedback and interact and all of that. So really all those things together really, I think, are the sweet spot. And that's why I talked about that compass over clock. Everything that has happened in my life has set me up to do exactly what I'm doing right now.
How have you seen that your team grow with your sort of management style?
I would have to say that the approach of teaching, coaching, directing, and delegating those principles, those basic leadership principles to bring a person through has been really successful over here. All right. It's really allowed the group to take hold of the concept of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And so that type of approach helps people to understand that for me to get any real growth, I have to step outside of that. So I think my disposition, I consider myself relatively down to earth. I consider myself relatively easy to talk to. And I'm pretty open with information that I share with individuals. And I think that collectively has helped to draw people like a moth to the light, to absorb a lot of that information and then apply that to themselves. I'm an avid reader. And so that also helps me to communicate up and down, the chain of command, so to speak, with people, my junior and my senior. As I've learned in the past that the more words I know, the more things I can see. And so really that kind of concept is what I pour into the people that directly report to me, and then it trickles down below that. And it's really about the whole concept of bottom-up growth, putting people in positions to essentially exploit, for lack of better words, what they're great at. That way we can maneuver more organically through problems and whatnot. So that part of that servant leadership, that's kind of my approach. It's really not about what I can do, but how can I serve someone else to make sure they get what they need? To me, that approach has been really, really helpful to watch the group grow. And based on that question, Bill, even I can share with the group, like we just made some significant changes, to the organization, promoted a ton of people, created a ton of new opportunities, a ton of new positions. And I really am humbled by that because it really is bottom-up growth. I don't go looking outside to grow the organization. We grow from the root up. And really what that does is that has people really invested in what we do, what we believe, and what we deliver. And so those things collectively, I believe, are what really helps to pour into the team and then help to grow them up and then set them on their way. We do a lot of things, and I'll use a phrase like disaster planning. We actually operate sometimes under the guise that our core systems are broken. How do we operate? And so that helps us to really think about solutions outside so we can never place blame on something outside of our control. Really, as long as we consider all the angles, it's like chess, consider all the moves, and then make the one that results in the least amount of damage. And I know that might sound counterproductive from time to time, but ultimately it's really about minimizing the damage, minimizing the break points. All right, that's what it really is all about.
How does your team really support the overall function of Full Throttle?
And yeah, I did talk a little bit, but really it's 5 key areas really that the team is really operating in to really do what you asked, right? And really it's about it's operations. So operations in a standard term, doing things by step, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, right? Now, deeper than that, it's then about aligning those operational units. So having different competencies work in parallel, right, in tandem, which ultimately breaks down those silos. And once those silos are broken down, then what we are able to do is we're able to align our goals. All right. So that's the next thing that really is happening there. And really what that's all about is really tracking the same metrics. Because I think what tends to happen when we're siloed, we begin to focus on what we believe is important and it no longer contributes to the priority. All right. And then what happens behind that then is we get into this expansive enablement. And really, that's really about ownership. It's about ownership because really the goal here is to have ownership and then responsibility. Because what this does is this helps to keep scope in line, all right? Keep scope in line because sometimes we can get head down with blinders and go and we lose focus on the priority and hence the scope. And then next really is about data. So there's a significant reliance. I know we talk in this masterclass about first party data and all that, but really what we're talking about when I say in this data driven environment is really about being able to interpret and then glean insights from that data, right? Because then, like I talked about the optimization team, really what happens then is we begin to optimize those operational functions. And then finally, it's really ultimately then about that accountability and collaboration, all right? That's that last piece because it's then about working to that common goal. So when you have those silos reduced and the priorities are focused, and the scope is clear and the functions are optimized, you have what we're looking for is that better buying and customer lifecycle experience.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about interaction. Why can you talk about kind of how the teams interact together and sort of how they come together to make sure that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing? Do you want to talk a little bit about that process?
I mean, the first thing I'll let the audience know is that Full Throttle is a location invisible company. All right. So what that means is we're not tethered to a corporate office, so to speak, to deliver our work. So we are definitely reliant on technology, Teams, Slack, Outlook, those kinds of communication channels to pass information back. We operate in a sprint mindset. That's our methodology to operate through our subscription-based products. And so that agile methodology allows us to use sprint planning. And what that does is that brings all the departments together, those department heads, to really look at what are they doing in their individual area and then discuss how those things overlap. And so what that does is that connects all the dots to the various centers. So those are the areas that really do the most. And then we're also about engaging outside of just being, work related, so to speak. We do things like book clubs and whatnot, where we can have those kind of discussions. I challenge, especially the leaders, to read a lot and really look at your personal development and not just read didactic material, but also things that are edifying. I'm really big on wellness. I didn't mention in my background, but I have a master's degree in counseling and I used to be a substance abuse counselor. And so there's a lot about that kind of concern or focus on wellness in the whole person. And so we also use those kind of things to keep us connected. All right. And I really strive to be as transparent as possible within reason to not expose or derail any kind of operational throughput. And so really that's the way we come together. We come together really in that digital environment. Then we come together in those planning kind of sessions. And then at each tier in the organization, we communicate horizontally, all right? Because then that creates cross-functional operations, because that's really one of the big things that I'm into is cross-functionality. Because when we have that kind of approach, we can deliver more without adding more to the unit. And so that's kind of the way the team is interacting. And then we use some software tools to do our work. So we communicate inside of those tools as well. But that's the way that whole thing comes together.